One quick thing, Daniel, like when you're talking about like the culture is kind of being more open, like I remember like I grew up reading a lot of comic books and like I was like 12 or 14 or something and Spider-Man one time said oy vey, all right? And I'm like a 14-year-old kid. I don't know what, like, cause a lot of the writers and stuff like Kirby and Stan Lee and all those guys were like Jewish, obviously, right? So they would sprinkle like little Trojan horse things, right? Like into the comics, right? Spider-Man's obviously, it's Peter Parker. He's not Jewish or anything like that, but it was just like,
It was like a boy from Queens.
yeah. So it's just, that's what I was like, that's why I noticed like from growing up, like Spider-Man going oy vey to like now a lot more openness with the Jewish culture. That's why I was like, I could feel the shift. I don't know if it's necessarily accurate, but that's the way it came across, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's so funny. You're right that those like back then, like if they wanted to tell their stories, they had to do it through something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you Trojan
Like,
horse it through the culture.
you're right. And like, but now it's kind of at the place where like, if someone's making a Greek movie or, Jewish
Rami.
movie. Yeah, Rami. Like people are looking for the specificity because, otherwise like we've almost seen it all. So like you want to see something new.
Mm-hmm. Yo, and welcome to My Summer Lair. I'm your host, Sammy. Shout out to Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is a goat. Shout out to Mel Brooks Younan. Remember the Ben Stiller classic Meet the Parents? Yeah, so take that movie and add brisket and a dead body. Welcome filmmaker Daniel Robbins, co-writer and director of Bad Shabbos, a sharp, fast-paced, wonderfully inappropriate comedy where a simple and traditional Friday night Sabbath dinner turns into a Jewish, I guess, Knives Out situation, all set on New York's Upper West Side. Yes, there's a dead body in the bathroom. However, that's not what's making this Sabbath dinner stressful. David, played by John Bass, he was great in this movie. David has been introducing his Catholic fiancée Meg to his Jewish traditions. And tonight, for this dinner, Meg is going to introduce her parents, a Catholic family from Wisconsin, to David's Jewish family and to their noble religious traditions. Oh, and of course, granted, this is a movie, all their dysfunctional family dramas. That's an inclusive package. Now, helping to tamp down the drama while also dealing with the dead body is an intrepid doorman played by Method Man, Wu-Tang! Religious traditions and cultural collisions, and Method Man, who at one point impersonates a Jew and in trying to be culturally sensitive, thoughtfully shares where he keeps his foreskin. It's quickly apparent that while the doorman is good at dealing with mysterious dead bodies, he's not so well versed in Judaism. And that's the thing, you can always mine culture for comedy because so much of what we do as culture, it's weird, which makes it funny. Bad Shabbos won the Audience Award at Tribeca Film Festival, and now it's opening in limited release in Toronto and in Vancouver. I'll have details at mysummerlair.com. Here's my conversation with Daniel. Stay tuned towards the end because I asked him about Method Man. Turns out Meth introduced a number of specific locations where he keeps his foreskin. I think my favorite one that didn't make the final movie cut, is the Maroon 5 bit. It's ridiculous. Just ridiculous. So, wait for that. And now, someone who is most excellent at discreetly getting rid of dead bodies is Stephanie, and she's got the introduction. Hit it.
Sound, the final frontier. My Summer Lair is an enterprise, a pop culture voyage with a continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new creators and celebrate established producers, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. And now here is your host, Sammy Younan.
We got to start with Method Man. Method Man is in Bad Shabbos. How do you direct Method Man? You call him Method Man or do you call him Cliff?
We mainly called him Cliff, with sometimes Method Man, but Cliff was the go-to name on set.
Okay, so yeah, it's interesting. Did you ever get a chance to talk to him like on the set about Wu-Tang?
Yeah, he like told us he has the best stories in the world, and he also has like Wu-Tang tattoo here, and on the other side it's Protect Your Neck, so it's like cool seeing up close.
Yeah,
and he's just like. In Judaism, we call him a mensch, where he's like the kindest guy possible.
Well, that reflects his character. His character wants to help too and wants to support the family, right? The Jewish family.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's tough in today's age to go into a movie that deals with the culture and to not be part of that culture and just go in swinging, saying controversial lines.
Yeah.
And most people would be afraid of it, but he's Method Man, so like
He can get
he
away with
can
it.
he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Wasn't scared, and he like halfway into the shoot, Kira like turned to me. She's like, he's stealing the movie. And I was like, nah, everyone's amazing. Then it turns out like the reaction to him has been through the roof.
Mm-hmm. And especially the reaction to him and David Paymer,
Yeah.
who plays the helpless father of the Jewish family. Him and Method Man have some great chemistry. But it's also like those scenes are like almost like super New York. You get a little bit of Jewishness, you get a bit of slang, like New York City flavors, Bad Shabbos.
Yeah, that's what New York's about. We've got it all, and you got like, every kind of person just fully getting along, and like people have loved the friendship between this older Jewish guy and this cool doorman,
Mm-hmm.
and dynamic is maybe we'll do a buddy cop movie after.
Yeah, go for it. For now, though, Bad Shabbos is like a Jewish twist on like Meet the Parents, but it was like I think partly sparked or inspired by a slightly truish Upper West Side prank.
Yeah, that Zach, the co-writer's mom, puts on these Shabbat dinners where she sometimes will prank a guest.
Mm-hmm.
And we just took that to the extreme of like what would happen if, the guest ended up dying. And you're right, it is. On rewatching Meet the Parents, I appreciated that it's kind of a story about a Jewish guy going into a waspy home. And like the comments about how Greg is Jewish and like that's why his culture doesn't exactly vibe with like De Niro and the people. And so our movie now is, okay, what if it's a Catholic girl going into a Jewish guy's home?
Mm-hmm.
So it is like almost like a sister movie, just much crazier.
Yeah, because both of the cultures are just like, from everybody's perspective, the cultures are weird. Like we were saying with like the father, Richard, and like Method Man hanging out, and like, like this older Jewish dude can like roll with Method Man or like, like a doorman and still talk like slang and things like this. And they can do fist bumps and stuff, right? Like culture is weird because it's so insular. But at the same time, if you reach out, you can kind of find those connecting paths.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also, again, like New York, Toronto, but my family's favorite movie is My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a Jewish movie, but it's just when you show cultures specifically and authentically, I feel like people, can see themselves in the same dynamics.
Was there any like, maybe danger is too strong a word, but like concerns of putting your Jewish culture on the screen? Because it's like, I'm not Muslim, but I'm Egyptian. And so when like Rami Youssef had the TV show Rami, he was putting a little bit of too much like dirty laundry of the culture, right? I'm like, yo, pull that back, man. People don't need to know this. Like,
It's so funny.
And so it's the same thing for you, where like, was there any concerns about putting too much Jewish culture and too much how much the family interacts on the screen? Almost dirty laundry in a sense, right?
Yeah, maybe. There's, especially, what's going on in the world. There's just a lot of tensions around Jews with like October 7th, like the war going on and, both sides yelling at each other. But I found that the way people engage with art or movies especially is that people just connect to the characters and go along with the ride for them. And I don't think people are watching the movie in like a lawyerly way. Like I know I watched Rami and I just, loved his culture so much more after watching it. So like, yes, there are some controversial things, but I'm not thinking of it like a lawyer. Like same I watch Sopranos, I like Italians more.
Yeah.
And this is the craziest shit imaginable.
Yeah.
And like The Godfather came out, a lot of Italians were concerned that this would lead to negative depictions of the Italian community. It turned out it was the opposite. So I think when you just, portray someone authentically and people get the opportunity to connect with them and see the humanity there, like even if they are doing questionable things, the result is, more love than judgment.
Yeah, and that love and judgment, there's a great line, Meg, the fiancée, she's the white Catholic girl. Like her parents are from Milwaukee, which is in Wisconsin. And so the father, Richard, he basically says, "Oh, Wisconsin, cheese." Right? Like it's the shorthand, right? That's all he knows. And I think that kind of cultural ignorance also plays out with sometimes with people with Jewish and Jewish culture. They only know like one or two things, right? Like maybe you wear the little hat or something like that. It's the Wisconsin equals cheese premise, right? That shorthand. That's all I know about you guys is cheese. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point. I honestly didn't even realize that that's what that line kind of illustrates, but that's a great point that, we do all have shorthands for what other cultures are, but once we truly see them, it's a whole different experience.
Mm-hmm. And then you talked about Method Man having some controversial lines. He was half joking. So he shows up to the Sabbat dinner and he's basically impersonating a Jew. And I'm not really describing this well. But anyways, he's half joking, half serious when he says about Jews control the banks and Jews control the media. He goes for the classic anti-Semitism. It plays funny in the movie. It doesn't sound funny the way I described it now, but it plays funny in the movie. And there's also a long tradition of Jews in comedy, like from Mel Brooks to Larry David. They don't have to be Jewish, but are there like some comedic voices that inspire you in terms of your comedy?
Yeah. The main ones are probably, well, there's Mel Brooks, Woody Allen, Ernst Lubitsch, if you go back really far, this great German comedy director.
Mm-hmm.
And then more recently, it's like Judd Apatow, Todd Phillips are like two of the great modern comedy directors, and they're both, Jewish guys. There's something about the culture and just like how critical and hyper aware people are that it just like nudges itself towards comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Because they say like drama's a mirror, comedy's a microscope or a magnifying glass, whichever it is. It's something that I feel like Jewish culture just inherently supports.
Is it part of that outsider culture? Because in Canada, we can sometimes look at America like a reality show, right? So there's a sarcasm like when we talk about America sometimes, right? Because we're a part of the same culture. We consume a lot of the same shows. We watch the same Marvel movies, things like that. But we're also outside of the culture. So it gives us a unique perspective. We get the culture, but we're also outside.
Uh, I think you might be right. And also that when you can engage in something, but also have a slightly removed view,
Mm-hmm.
gives you a perspective where you could more easily joke about things. Also, a lot of great comedians are also Irish. Like John Mulaney, Bill Burr, Colin Quinn. Like that's another. Also, like Italians, like Maniscalco. I think it's really kind of an immigrant thing,
Mm-hmm.
where like you said, you are engaged in the world around you, but you're also questioning everything. You don't just take it for granted. And that dynamic probably, leads to good observations and funny stuff.
Yeah, because with the immigrant thing, like, you come to this new country and then you got to decide which are like these traditions, which are kind of from the old school country are too weird or you don't want to keep going anymore. And which ones are the new ones you want to adopt. You kind of get stuck between the two worlds. The main character in your movie, like at one point, he didn't want to push the elevator button because he was like, you're supposed to abstain from electricity, right? It's a tradition. And Method Man's like, yo, man, just push the button. Right. And like that's kind of like the tension of the culture, right? Of like being an immigrant. We're like, I want to like participate in our culture. This is what we do. This is what we believe. And Method Man and like the regular culture is like, yo, man, just push the button.
Yeah, that's true. That's also true to the spectrum of Judaism we depicted in the movie is very much struggles with that. Where, you have Hasids who are just doing their own thing in Brooklyn, just full Judaism, not really engaged with the secular world. And then you have a lot of Jews who are just in the secular world and just culturally are Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
But in the movie we depict modern Orthodox, which is kind of where I am, which is kind of like Rami, where it's like in between where you're in the secular world doing your thing, but you're also really keeping the customs and the traditions and practicing religion. So it's a constant balance, and like each generation usually changes a little bit, and it's families just trying to find that middle ground with each other.
Is there a heart and a hope that you can kind of keep some of those traditions alive, even though it's a little bit harder sometimes? Because sometimes from where you come from, it's a little bit more set up that way. You know what I mean? Like when you talk about Rami, like when you go to Egypt or whatever, when I've been to Egypt many times, I'm like, oh, this makes a lot more sense now. I see why you guys are like this and why, you know what I mean? Like, but like you said, when you're in New York City, New York is kind of constructed in a different way that would maybe sometimes even make some of those traditions harder. Not that they're being racist or anything, but you know what I mean? It's just not, it's not how we do things around here.
Yeah, that's true. And it is each generation, you're right, has their own struggles depending on where they lived or they kept traditions here. Now they're in a different environment and it completely shifts.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this rabbi, like Rabbi Sachs, who's the chief rabbi of England, and like a very wise man, and he credits the idea of the Sabbath or Shabbat with keeping the Jewish people alive for so many years. But just that idea of like every week, no matter your wins and losses, you just sit down with family, friends, and you're not talking about work or judging yourself based on what you've done, but just, your dignity as a person
Mm-hmm.
and just hanging out in that space for 24 hours. Like even, history is full for every culture, full of like mayhem and chaos. And having something like that to ground you each week
Mm-hmm.
is, it's important for your family, but also yourself. Like was talking to one of my Christian friends and I said, Shabbat is like what Christmas is to your year, Shabbat is for your week. Like imagine a year without Christmas. Like it would just be so depressing. But like having that capstone that just, family gets together, it like reminds you what's great. Like all these movies come up that remind you that he who is rich is not who has money, but who's rich in friends and family, and it just recenters you. Shabbat is kind of that every week. So I think that's, like some traditions might go in and out, but that one, I think keeping that strong could be could be good.
And that's where the value of Meg comes from, or a character like Meg. She was the white fiancée, right? So she was Catholic. So she's obviously not Jewish, but she wants to convert. And so she ends up taking classes and studying and reading and stuff like that. So she discovers all these things about Judaism that like the rest of the family had either forgotten or didn't know. Like she became a conduit for like rediscovery.
Yeah, I think you're right. She really did. And that actress, her actual name in real life is also Megan, and she was unbelievable
Mm-hmm.
because like there's the main character John Bass has to go through so much, and we needed someone who's just like this pure soul and just an amazing person that an audience would just like fall in love with and root for. And she has this like quality and like her acting is just so like authentic and like never feels like she's trying to like win your affection and just yeah. So we're so lucky we just found her for that role because I don't
She's
know how the movie.
earnest in the movie too. She really wants to learn the Judaism, right? She wants to fit in and belong to this quirky and weird family.
Yeah, she does, and she also you can feel it in her character that you could see why she would connect to them.
Mm-hmm.
Where they happen a debate club, like she's really like has that like arguing, questioning gene, and like just enjoys the way the family like talks at each other like quickly. Like she has that like soul.
Yeah, and you mentioned John Bass as the other half of the romantic couple, the Jewish. He gave you 3 levels, right? Was that for every scene, and you got to determine like how to play out the comedy because he's a bit more of a straight man, I guess. While everything is like kind of happening on unfolding. So you want to explain his 3 levels?
Yeah, he said he actually got this from Ken Marino, where there's 1, 2, and 3, and the only notes John would need is either 1 is completely grounded and real, 2 is grounded but a little funny, and 3 is just over the top. Let's try to do something really funny and ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of all like I would even say, like, okay, maybe let's try 2. All right, we got that. Let's do 3. And I think his role in the movie is probably the hardest, where he needs to be a real person while making everything around him funny without breaking the reality, which
That's what I
is
was kind
really
of saying,
hard.
like a straight manish almost, like, you know?
Yeah, it's straight man, but he also gets a lot of laughs, like from lines and the way he moves his body, and he kind of maintains the tone of the movie, and everyone bounces around him. But it's like actors really appreciate his role the most, even though it's not the showiest.
So your previous movies were horror. You had Uncaged, which was a werewolf movie. You had Pledge, another horror movie set in a college fraternity. Horror and comedy are all about timing. Did some of your horror roots or some of those horror experiences leak into Bad Shabbos?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are a couple horror beats, like when the younger brother just shows up at the window, and there's kind of a like a beat, or when he's doing the compressions, then he breaks through the ribs,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the body, how it falls, and the reveal of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
They say that horror and comedy are connected because they're both about timing, but I think that's true. Just comedy is much much harder because in horror, as long as you get the timing right, it's going to be scary. Like You wait for an amount of time, build the tension, the face comes out. But with comedy, you have to like build the tension, and then the line has to be said in the exact intonation with the right speed and the right face, and the actor has to be the right height for it to be not too overpowering. So it's really like the bullseye just keeps getting smaller to make it work. And even in the edit, like you can have like the right line, the right actor, the right take, but it's just like if he was leaning back in the chair versus leaning forward, like that's the difference of if it's funny or not. So it's I know why like people usually stop making comedies and move on to other genres because it is challenging, but it's my favorite thing. So,
The way
someone's
you
got to
describe it, it sounds like an exact science almost.
yeah, like there's an exact science to it, but there's also like the hurricane of it where almost to produce comedy, you need to create like a hurricane where actors can say whatever they I mean, it's controlled chaos, but ultimately we have to feel like on set actors can say whatever they want. We have to constantly try things, get ideas from everywhere. So like trying to create the comedy is a little chaotic, but then once you're refining it, it's gets down to like pulling out frames just to speed up a shot or adding frames to make something a little longer to get that laugh or splitting a frame and making this actor on the left side talk a little sooner than he did an actual take. So there's a lot of that. So it's a combination of the hurricane and then harnessing it.
As we're wrapping up, you talk about like you want to give the actors like opportunities to make comments, to kind of work with the comedy, to refine it. We opened with Method Man, and we're going to close with Method Man because in the dinner scene, Method Man, as I mentioned, he's impersonating a Jew. It really sounds racist when I say it out loud. Anyways, and he talks about being circumcised. He talks about being circumcised, and he reveals at the dinner, oh boy, that he keeps his foreskin in a snow globe. What were some of the other like takes, or what were some of the other places that Method Man keeps his quote unquote foreskin? Where does he treasure his foreskin? Because you gave him a couple of opportunities at that.
Yeah, it's a great question. He was also sitting next to Milana Weintraub, who's an improv genius, and
Mm-hmm.
I've like admired her comedy for over a decade. So together they were coming up with like the craziest things you can imagine. Like he said, I keep my foreskin in a change pocket in my favorite pair of pants at home. I keep it on my next to my bedside, next to Maroon 5 album signed by Adam Levine himself. He said I keep it in a sandwich bag, hermetically sealed in my mom's freezer. He had it's in a snow globe on my grandma on the mantle above my fireplace next to my grandma's ashes. And you're like, what's going on in this guy's life? And then there's something with like a pickle jar. It just kept going. And eventually, actually, we tested so many of them, and we ended up just ending up with snow globe
Yeah.
because like Mike Nichols talks about an expensive joke, which is a joke that it's funny, but the price is really high because it breaks the reality, so it makes everything else less funny.
Yeah.
Him going on like this complex joke there, it just felt like the characters around him would never allow him to continue it, and he himself is like pretty grounded and with it, and like I think even he knows how crazy it is.
Mm-hmm.
So ended up with Snow Globe, and it still got a laugh, but I do miss them.
Yeah. You were able to
Blooper reel.
record all of them? Like the cast wasn't cracking up? Because some of those are ridiculous.
Oh yeah, they're laughing the whole time. Even in the movie, if you go through the dinner scene as Method Man's talking and we see a wide shot, we see Megan just like laughing and covering her face. Because even going through all the takes and trying to trim, there are times we just couldn't cut the laughter out.
Yeah.
I justified it as like if he's actually talking about this stuff, I could totally imagine her just laughing. And it seems like people haven't noticed yet. But
He
if you
does
watch it for a
steal the movie
second,
though.
yeah, which is crazy. And it felt like he was because every actor's been named as like someone's favorite because like they all like knock it out of the park.
They
But I
do,
knew
yeah.
that he was doing something special once. I showed it to my friends. It was my friends, his parents, and his grandparents. And after I asked his grandma, I was like, this sweet Jewish grandma. I said, so who's your favorite? Thinking it's going to be one of these 9 Jewish characters. I just made this Jewish movie. She'll be so excited. And she just goes, oh my God, that doorman was so charming. Like, who's that? I was like, oh my God. Like, if Method Man's reaching her,
Yeah.
like, that's as far as it could, as, the demo could stretch. So I think he's going to win over a lot of people who
That's
can,
great. Yeah, no, he's great. Like he did like Garden State. So
yeah.
he excels in those like little small roles where you don't expect to see him. Like he just looks so out of place. but
You're right.
he works. I don't know what it is about him, but it works. And then, like you said, if you know him as Wu-Tang and Method Man, you're like, yo, yes, you get excited.
Yeah, and The Wire, and seeing him up close, you realize why that he. Some people who are celebrities, like they kind of come into movies as cameos, but he approaches his craft like it's a craft. Like he studies acting, like reads books on acting, like explores different ways to do the roles, like comes prepared with all these ideas. Like he is like an actor's actor, and he's probably going to win an Oscar one day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a positive note. We can end it there. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, people can point back to this when Method Man wins an Oscar. They'll be like, this random Jewish indie filmmaker.
Yeah. Like there you go. Yeah. That's prophetic, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's opening up in limited release here in Toronto. I'll put the link in the show notes, but thank you so much for it does feel like kind of like a lot more like openly Jewish culture. Movies and TV shows are kind of happening in the last little while. Like, you know what I mean? Like we had Between the Temples, Meet the Fablemans, the Spielberg one, right. Your film, Nobody Wants This. Like it feels like it's kind of it's a little bit of more of a celebration of, I guess, your culture and your people and your history is kind of being more open. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're right. Well, Bible's the best-selling book, so you do something related to that.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like people are responding to like culturally specific stories more so now than I think they have in the past. I wonder why.
That's above my pay grade. I'm just here to talk about the movie. So, and then throw in some Method Men every now and then, but that's about it. So, but yeah.
Thank you, Sam. Dude, this is so fun talking.
Thanks, Sammy.
Yo, that was filmmaker Daniel talking about his film Bad Shabbos, fantastic comedy, and I'm Sammy, host of My Summer Lair. I'm a mensch for recommending Bad Shabbos. Get that movie into your life, and your life just got better. This charming conversation with Daniel, it covered Mel Brooks to Method Man, Wu-Tang to Meet the Parents, and honestly, truly, that's a trailer for My Pal Sammy, a weekly Substack newsletter. There, I write about hashtag set to VCR, which are TV recommendations, hashtag new book smell, which are book recommendations, and hashtag pantsworthy, which are events and experiences that are truly, well, they're worth pants. There's also hashtag down with pants, but that legitimate revolution, that needs a whole different newsletter. For now, sign up at Substack, search for My Pal Sammy, or go to mysummerlair.com/subscribe. If you've already signed up, thank you so much. You are an amazing human being. I hope that Wu-Tang will protect your neck. And if you haven't signed up, well, yo, son, I hope Wu-Tang will bring the ruckus right to your front door. Oh man, you don't want that. So sign up at Substack for My Pal Sammy, and you can avoid that foolish fate. Thank you so much for listening to me in a Netflix world. Good Shabbos, yo.